Hi, I'm Nick Byrne, and I chose to do my human rights violation research project on Article 2 of the United Nations Declaration of Human Rights. Article 2 states, "Everyone is entitled to all the rights and freedoms set forth in this declaration, without distinction of any kind, such as race, color, sex, language, religion, political or other opinion, national or social origin, property, birth, or other status. Furthermore, no distinction shall be made on the basis of the political, jurisdictional, or international status of the country or territory to which a person belongs, whether it be independent, trust, non-self-governing, or under any other limitation of sovereignty." This article means that all rights and privileges, as well as necessities listed in following articles, apply to all types of people and all walks of life. Basically, what they're trying to say is that there isn't a single person on Earth that can be denied the basic rights of humans. As this article is extremely important in anti-discrimination, I chose the violation of apartheid as my example. Apartheid occurred in South Africa when the whites made laws that it was illegal for blacks to work and live among whites. These laws also classified many racial groups, and people could be sent to jail if these laws were violated. My parents were raised in South Africa and lived through apartheid, so I decided to interview them on their thoughts on both Article 2 and apartheid. After reading them the article, I asked them the following questions.
Well, to me, it means that it is wrong to discriminate against anybody because of their race, their country of origin, their religion, or any aspect of their humanity. All human beings are equal and worthy of the same respect and acceptance.
Absolutely. That we lived separately to the blacks. I grew up in an area where there were only whites. The blacks lived about in a certain area, only designated area. I went to an all-white school. The bus, if I caught a bus, it was an all-white bus.
Yeah, it was completely separate living and separate rights and privileges, and unfortunately, under the apartheid system, the white people had all the nicest areas to live. Even when it came to, we lived in a beach city, the Durban, and the nicest beaches were reserved for the white people, and so on and so on. So it was really the worst form of discrimination.
Absolutely, going to an all-white school, the buses that we were on, the whole school system. We had a whole white school system and an all-black school system.
Well, uh, the black people did not have the right to live in the city, for example. So the cities were reserved, as far as living there, were reserved for white people, and black people were allowed to come in and work during the day in the cities with a permit. They had to have a permit to do so. But then they had to go back to what were described as the townships, which were poorer areas outside the city, and that's where they lived. So really, I mean, it was violation of this article literally 24 hours, 7 days a week, 365 days a year in every aspect of life. Well, I can remember one instance. The city of Durban had pretty good public transport. Again, you know, the best public transport was reserved for white people. There were white buses, and there was a white bus system and a black bus system. And I remember I would go downtown on the bus. That's how I got to and from work when I first started working fresh out of college. And I can remember getting on the bus to go home one day and looking out the window and seeing a black person who had missed his bus. And he came over before our bus left, and he asked our driver if he could get on our bus for whatever distance he needed to go. And he was refused and turned away. He was not allowed on the bus. Well, I think the two people that were responsible for ending apartheid, who had a big part in it, probably the biggest part in it, were the the man who was the white president at the time. His name was President de Klerk, and the people of South Africa didn't realize this, but President de Klerk saw the light, and he realized, and his closest advisors realized, that apartheid could not survive, and that South Africa itself would die if apartheid was not ended. And so, behind the scenes, he negotiated with Nelson Mandela, who was then in prison, and they negotiated a peace accord, and that brought South Africa to free and fair elections in 1994, which put President de Klerk out of power and brought Nelson Mandela in as the new president of South Africa, and that resulted in a new peace and a new freedom and the beginning of real equality in South Africa. And interestingly, those two men a couple of years later were awarded jointly the Nobel Peace Prize for the work they did to end apartheid.
Not by law, but there's definitely an awareness of colour still in South Africa, and that the blacks had an unfair start. And so there is still, and it's very similar, in my opinion, still like it is in America, obviously, many years later, still here, that subtle awareness of discrimination.
Yeah, so not on the law books, but certainly socially, one can still see signs, yeah.
It's easy to hear from their answers that apartheid was a major violation of both human rights and Article 2.